Ashivenu, Ashivenu, Adoshem Elecha, Vena Shuva, Vena Shuva, Adesh, Adesh, Yameinu Kekedem.
It's a great honor to be with you this evening as the March of the Living International honors Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger with its Global Ambassador of Hope Award. March of the Living is truly a remarkable organization. Since its inception in 1988, over 100,000 Jewish and non-Jewish teens from more than 40 countries have participated in a unique educational program. As you'll hear this evening from two impressive young individuals, March of the Living transforms young people's lives through a deeply moving personal experience. Now, I've had the honor and the pleasure of knowing Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and his accomplished wife, Maria, for many, many years. They're a great couple, they're great people, and I can think of no individual more deserving of receiving this award. Put simply, he personifies the principle of tolerance and is a champion of education as well.
I have always been proud to be a Jew. I attended Hebrew day school and sang in my synagogue's children's choir every first of the month, the same synagogue where my grandfather was the very first cantor. My family observed many Jewish traditions, and I always loved participating in my culture. I would like to thank my mother for teaching me all the beautiful traditions. She passed away 4 months ago, and I know she would have loved to be here. I always loved my heritage, but I never realized how thankful I would become to have the freedom to observe, not until the March of the Living. The March of the Living affected my life so profoundly, I found a whole new level of Jewish pride. In 1990, I embarked on a journey with 4,000 Jewish children from all over the world. It was my first trip across the Atlantic, and I came back with an entirely new perspective on life. There will never be anything quite like walking through the gates reading Arbeit macht frei. I will never feel colder than the day I saw 800,000 pairs of shoes callously ripped from the feet of innocent men, women, and children. Some members of our trip wept when they recognized their own family names on the battered suitcases. The huge pit of Jewish ashes marked by the chilling words, "We lie here in warning to you." I had read the books, seen the films, and touched the tattooed number on my cousin's arm. But nothing prepares you for the reality of being in the camp, standing in a gas chamber, running your fingers on the gouges on the walls left from the human nails in their last moments. The images will last a lifetime, but none so strongly as the actual March of the Living. 4,000 strong from Auschwitz to Birkenau, we marched hand in hand in complete silence, every country their own contingency with their flags raised high, Israel's group dressed all in white, and the March of the Living blue jacket. When we arrived to the site of the ceremony, which was a crematorium blown up by the Jews, it was cold and raining. Elie Wiesel, a man who's spoken all over the world, breaks down as he is overcome by the memory of a small girl who perished in the camp. Our choir prepares to sing Chana Senesh's Song on Freedom, and when we hit our first note, the rain stopped and the sun miraculously appeared. There are 4,000 witnesses to this beautiful moment, and it forever warms my heart.
When Vice Prime Minister Ehud Olmert asked me to become involved with the March of Living, it was a great honor. Understanding the Holocaust and its lessons for all humanity is quite simply part of every Jew's soul. For my wife Adele, who is second generation, it's even more personal since her parents are themselves survivors. No matter what any of us may experience in life, it will never compare to the horrors they suffered in Europe. Tonight we are honored to have a number of Holocaust survivors with us. I'd like to ask them at this time to please stand so that we may acknowledge them for what they survived, thank them for what they have contributed to this great nation, and recognize them for the vital lessons they have taught us. The March of Living program and the funds we have raised this evening for the 2005 March is a tribute to each of these individuals and to every Jew who perished in this horrific chapter of history. Far more than this, however, the March of Living is a unique educational experience, an experience that each of you has now helped make possible for literally thousands of young people. Tonight, we honor a man who personifies the word tolerance. He is a man who throughout his life has defied the odds. At every crossroad, he has forever stood by his principles. Principles that have always been based upon equality, respect for all human beings, and the value of education. Governor Schwarzenegger, you are a leader with vision, a man pure of conviction, and a model of tolerance. You are truly an inspirational to all of us. As you all may know, Governor Schwarzenegger's first visit as a governor to a foreign country was to Israel. Over the last 2 years, I've personally learned of the governor's deep and long-standing connection with Israel and the Jewish people. While March of Living is fortunate to honor Governor Schwarzenegger, it is we who are honored to have him here this evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, human memory is short. Those who survived the Holocaust will soon no longer be able to tell their stories, and then there will be no one to tell his own truth about the Shoah. We are in a critical moment when survivors are present among us to share their true stories with us. Once this generation is no longer alive, only history itself can serve us as a source of knowledge of what took place. Will it be history versus history? The history of the victim of the Holocaust and those of the deniers of the Holocaust? We must preserve the memory. We must not forget, and we must fight the denial of the Holocaust. Over the years, many people approach me and ask, what pushed me to create the March of the Living program? To them, I answer with a very short story. Lucy Davidovich, a Shoah researcher who passed away, was invited to a TV debate with a famous Shoah denier named Robert Hirschson. Mrs. Davidovich asked the interviewer, how come he is leading a debate on the subject of denying the Holocaust? Is the Holocaust debatable? The interviewer responded, look, I am 27 years old. I was not there. I don't know. From my point of view, everything is debatable. This is all what the March of the Living is all about. To build a bridge, an iron bridge, between generations, and to tell the story from one generation to another generation. Ladies and gentlemen, upon the return from March of the Living in Auschwitz and Birkenau, I recall one young man told me, after a 10 minutes visit my Danek desk camp, I found it equal to all my life in school. It's those experiences that drive us forward to continue to grow of our mission. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, thank you for your friendship. Thank you. Thank you for your support. And thank you for caring, and thank you for never forgetting. Thank you all. Thank you.
Of all the events that I had the honor of taking part in, the one which was the most moving, the one which influenced me personally more than anything else, was the privilege I had to represent the Israeli government in one of the first March of the Livings, going with the young Jewish kids from Israel to Auschwitz. There was nothing which could be more sad than to be there and to see in my own eyes what happened to my people. There was nothing happier than to be there with the flag of the State of Israel and the young Jews from the State of Israel in Auschwitz. There is not a stronger statement of pride and of victory than the fact that so many years after this horrible attempt to liquidate the Jewish people, we are here, and we are here to stay as proud people living in the independent state, the State of Israel. It is of unlimited impact on the education of this young generation of Jews. They come from Israel, and they come from almost every country in the world, from Australia and New Zealand, from America and Canada, from Brazil and Buenos Aires, from Russia and the Ukraine, from other European countries. They assemble in Warsaw, and then they move to Birkenau, where they march, getting acquainted first time in the most personal and direct way with something which forever will remain part of the life of every Jew and hopefully of every human being. And at the end of few days of discussions and of meetings in Poland, they go to Israel and they conclude this week-long experience in the city of Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the Jewish people. This is a week that starts with destruction and ends with resurrection. This is a week which starts with the pains and the emotions of what happened then and ends with the joy and pride of what is being built now. This is a week that every single person taking part in is confronted with the most fundamental issues that will be part of his life from then on. And many of them understand who they are and why they are and what they are much better from this week on, because they have to ask questions that they never asked, and they come up with answers that they never thought of before. The March of the Living is the most important educational program for young people it should be an education program for Jews and non-Jews alike. I believe that the day will come that thousands of Jews and non-Jews will march together and will learn together and will remember together and will understand together and will never forget together.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of California and the First Lady of California,
we are very proud to have this opportunity to recognize you as a truly ambassador of hope. By supporting the March of the Living, you have bravely chosen to pay respect to the memory of the millions of victims of hatred and to honor the lives of the survivors. Your life's work as a public servant, businessman, and entertainer embodies the values we at the March of the Living hold dear. Your steadfast commitment to our goals declares to the world that the stories of the victims and the survivors will not be forgotten. And together we can work toward a world filled with hope, goodwill, tolerance, and brotherhood. Thank you very much, Mr. Governor. This is an artwork which was drawn in 1759, and it shows the land of Israel. It's divided according to original 12 tribes. And what we say in this inscription, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, March of the Living International Global Ambassador of Hope Award. Your commitment to tolerance and understanding is an inspiration to all humanity. February 10th, 2005.
Vice Prime Minister Olmert, Minister Hirschson, Beny, Alagem, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so honored to receive this award here today, an award for hope, from friends who know the meaning of despair. Let me just tell you why this honor means so much to me. I did not learn about the Holocaust in school or in any other place when I grew up. I did not really understand what happened until I came to America. And even today, I'm still learning. Just when I think I've heard stories so horrible they cannot be surpassed in barbarity, I hear and read something even more inhumane and more inexplicable and incomprehensible. But as I say, I did not know these things for many years. My father was in the Second World War. He fought in many different fronts, but he never talked to me about the war. My mother, however, once told me something what happened to her when she was 17 or 18 years old. She was a young secretary in a town called Mitzzuschlag. She went to work one day. It was after the Anschluss, when Austria was absorbed into Germany. She was going to work one morning and she was stunned by what she saw. Along the side of the road, she saw the bodies of people that were shot to death. When she got into work, she rushed straight to her superior and she told him about the awful sight that she just witnessed. She was horrified and she was outraged and she was very upset. And the man who was her superior said to her, "If you complain one more time, or if you mention this story ever again, I cannot guarantee your safety." What she saw that morning was only a tiny sliver of a much larger, darker truth. Some people in this room experienced that dark truth firsthand. People like Sigi Hart, who was in Auschwitz, in Bergen-Belsen, and other camps. Michelle Kleiner, who works with me at the governor's office, she met Sigi. She met him just before the March of the Living back in 1996. She loves him for his compassion. She reveres him for his witness to history. He was taken to his first camp at the age of 17. Until he was on that train to Auschwitz, he had always been with his mom and dad. He says he grew up overnight, alone on that train. What unspeakable things Sigi witnessed, and yet he's still able to say that we're all children of God and made out of the same material. What grace. When Sigi's grandchildren were young and vulnerable, they would ask him what those numbers were on his arm. And he would gently say they were to help him to remember his telephone number. What kindness. We can ask how the inhumanity of Auschwitz could happen. But we can also ask, how is it that all the evil of Auschwitz could not destroy the goodness of a man like Sigi Hart? How is it that he was able to fall in love with another survivor and together build a close, happy family of their own with a son, with a daughter, and with grandchildren? It is like after a terrible fire, when a seedling sprouts up and in defiance and hope begins to renew the forest. That is what the survivors have done. So if you would permit me, I would like to accept this award for hope, in honor of those who truly know the meaning of that word. And I want to say something directly to the survivors here tonight. And I want you to know this in your heart. When you are gone, we will still go back. We will go back to Auschwitz. We will go back to Dachau. We will go back to Treblinka and all the other places. We will go back and we will remember you. Never again will you be alone on a cold night in that boxcar on a train to Auschwitz. We will be with you. Your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and grandchildren for many generations to come will have their arms around you and will hold you. We will go back and we will remember. We will remember what you suffered. We will remember what you lost. We will remember what you hoped and what you dreamed. We will remember what you gave us and what you taught us. We will remember your story. We will never forget. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
What a great speech. As a reflection of what this evening is truly about, education and understanding and tolerance, tonight's invocation will be offered by two of the most respected members of the clergy, Rabbi Harvey Fields, Rabbi Emeritus of the Wilshire Boulevard Temple, and Reverend Cecil L. Chip Murray, who just recently retired as senior pastor of the venerable, and I might add, world-renowned First African Methodist Episcopal Church. Gentlemen, Rabbi Fields and Reverend Murray for the invocation.
Lord God, we confess that we do not understand nor can we stand the tsunamis of the seas. Nor in the same way can we understand or stand the tsunamis of the souls. In the last century, 100 million of your children dead with wounds inflicted by others of your children. In recent memory, 6 million of your children laid as sacrifices upon the altars of ignorance. What do we ask of you? Pierce our consciousness. Pierce our energies. Move us that we will be able to withstand even that which we cannot understand. Tsunamis that are natural and unnatural cannot stand before a supernatural God into whose hands we commit our spirits.
This prayer is meant to remind us of how fortunate we are to share these moments in friendship and in freedom. This prayer is meant to remind us never to forget the liberation 60 years ago, never to forget Auschwitz, Birkenau, and all the other camps of misery and murder. Never to forget a time when the heart of the world went cold and stayed hard like a stone, when the soul of humanity remained complacent and turned its back on God and on God's image. Never to forget Nazi time, merciless time, a time when desperate shrieking of starving children and pleading parents and broken aged, bewildered youth found no response except from the executioners who dispatched them and tortured them and made sure that millions drowned in blood and in flames. Never again to forget that compassion played no part. Teachings of contempt, yes. Greed, yes. Cunning, yes. Beatings, yes. Starvation, yes. Crammed boxcars, yes. Chimneys belching human remains of smoke and ashes, yes. Yes. Never to forget, lest such moments be allowed to flourish again. Never to forget, from this night forward, from Auschwitz and Birkenau, we learned nothing. Never to forget. That's why we have gathered here, O God, to say thanks for words of hope, for new beginnings seated in us, for a world of justice and of mercy and of peace.
I feel that I must say how much I admire Beny and Adele for what they have done tonight. A few months ago, I talked to Beny Alagem and shared with him my desire to have a major event in LA in order to support the March of the Living. Unlike many others, he said, I will do, and he did. Beny and Adele, on behalf of the Israeli government and on behalf of all those who are part of the March of the Living, I want to salute you and Adele. Thank you very much.
Tonight we are here because Beny and Adele recognize the importance of tolerance and Holocaust education as a means of removing hate from our world. Our ancient sage Hillel HaZaken tells us, who is a person who should be honored? And he answered, he is one who lives life of emor me'at ve'aseh harbe, which means one who says little and does much. Beny and Adele are an example of people who do for others, while saying little and asking for nothing in return for themselves. We are honored to have made such a warm friendship with such special people. Thank you, boss, Beny and Adele. On behalf of the March of the Living, this scroll of Megillat Esther is proudly presented to Beny and Adele Alagem for their leadership, dedication, and promoting tolerance education, teaching the lesson of the Holocaust, and in do so keeping alive the honoring and the memory of those who have perished. This 10th day of February 2005, Beverly Hills, California, USA. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here today to share some of my experiences with you. I am very honored. In May 2001, I traveled to Poland to participate in a march that brought together about 400 students from 23 countries to visit Holocaust sites and to learn about the dangers of intolerance. As a Rwandan, this was an especially personal and significant trip for myself and 4 other students also from Rwanda. Although the international community vowed never again after World War II, sadly, this is not a promise that has been kept. In April to July of 1994, up to 1 million Rwandans were brutally killed in 100 days. With horrific speed and using farm tools, sticks, and stones, a group of Hutu extremists was able to organize and execute a systematic plan to wipe out the Tutsi population, my people, my family, my relatives. Now is not the time to describe the horrors of the Rwandan genocide in detail, but perhaps one fact can illustrate the horror and scope of the tragedy. Many Tutsi parents, fully aware of the imminent death of their children by crude instruments, actually paid money to murderous Hutu extremists to have their children shot rather than hacked to death. Again, the international community stood by. I firmly believe that the Rwandan regime at the time realized that the international community would not be willing to act. This culture of impunity allows small groups of extremists to brutalize people with no fear of consequences, as is happening today to the people of Darfur in Sudan. Still, I'm optimistic about the future. I'm optimistic that never again can be a reality. I'm optimistic because I believe education and awareness make a huge difference. Perhaps not as soon as we'd hope for, but I believe that education, whether it's through an educational trip, such as the one I was on, awareness campaigns, or school curriculums, can make us ambassadors of tolerance and understanding. Personally, I believe that education on genocide should be on all school curriculums. Perhaps if Holocaust education were on the curriculum in Rwanda before 1994, more ordinary people would have resisted the evil being perpetrated in their name. One experience in Poland that gave me a great deal of optimism was meeting some of the survivors of the Holocaust. Sylvia Gutman, whose parents were gassed in Auschwitz, particularly touched me. I was moved by her courage and bravery in sharing her story with us and in educating others about the Holocaust. Also, I was very interested, along with the other Rwandan students on the trip, to see what we could learn from Sylvia and other survivors, to see how they rebuilt their lives, and to learn how we could apply this knowledge to the Rwandan community, which more than 10 years after the genocide is struggling to cope with so much trauma. When a survivor of the Holocaust holds hands with a Rwandan student in Auschwitz, and when they dry each other's tears and learn from one another, we know that Hitler and tyrants like him can be defeated. I was deeply honored to be able to participate on this march. Firstly, to pay my respect to 6 million Jews who were brutally killed in Europe during World War II. To say that we have not forgotten, to say that their lives were of value. Secondly, to say to the survivors of the Holocaust that we remember, that we care. It is my hope that in remembering and learning, we will not be complacent. Complacency leads to indifference, and it is indifference that allows dangerous ideologies such as Rwanda's in 1994 to even be a possibility. Let us not forget. I feel that it is very important for me to emphasize that genocide is a universal issue. It should not only concern Jews or Rwandans. It is something that should be of concern to all humanity. In Martin Luther King's words, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are all interconnected, and I think this has become more and more apparent in recent times. We cannot afford to ignore our responsibilities to our fellow human beings. Ubuntu is an ancient African word that means humanity to others. A famous saying in different languages of sub-Saharan Africa that describes this concept goes, Umuntu gumuntu gabantu. Roughly translated, this means a person can only be a person through other people, or I am what I am because of who we all are. Before I finish, I would like to kindly ask you to join me in remembering the victims of the Holocaust and the Rwandan genocide with whom I have a personal connection. For Hyacinthe and Dagrot, Wilson and Charles Rwanga, Eric Kagara and Mikaire, for the Karambizi family who were brutally killed in Rwanda, for Malka and Nathan Gutman who were gassed in Auschwitz. And now I would like to ask you all to pause and take a moment of silence in respect to the millions of victims of the Holocaust and all victims of genocide.
We would like to close the evening with a very special song, one that brought comfort and hope to the participants of the March of the Living on several occasions. Lay Down Your Arms was written by Doron Levinson, a veteran of the tank battles of the 1973 Yom Kippur War, in memory of 3 of his friends who died in that terrible conflict. Doron himself was temporarily blinded during the war and traced out the melody to the prophet Isaiah's words of peace and hope while recovering in the hospital. Lo yesagoy el goy cherev, velo yomadu od milchama. From Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4, nations shall no longer raise arms against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Dear God, please hear us. Listen to our prayer and help us do thy will upon this earth. Let the children
suffer